Well, welcome back to Wisdom with the Wise Counselor podcast. I'm your host, the Wise Counselor, also known by my birth name. Many of you know me. It's just simply Lateef. This podcast is all about building your emotional resiliency, thinking about wellness and mental health, and reclaiming your authority, learning how to live your life on purpose and in purpose 324, 365. You know what I'm saying. Listen, family, let me paint this picture for you, and I'm diving right on in today. I recently started a graduate level professional development class, and it's in the arena of sports psychology. Now, y'all know I love anything that talks about mindset and resiliency and motivation, all of the things that make people tick. So naturally, I was ready to dive and go in deep in this course. I got my textbook and then I got my notebook out and I was highlighting before the class even officially started. And then I read deeply on the syllabus online. And one of the assignments that they have us doing is watching the movie Rudy. Now, for those who don't know, Rudy is a classic movie. It's an underdog story of a guy who dreams of playing football for Notre Dame, and he's got dyslexia, and he's definitely got limited finances and people around him who don't immediately believe that he can do it. Still, he keeps fighting, he keeps showing up, and he refuses to quit, And I thought, okay, this is a part of the course. I can get down with this. It should be all good. But then a few days later, I saw how I was supposed to watch the movie Rudy. It didn't click to me like, oh, how am I going to just get this random movie? They literally mailed me a DVD, a whole DVD in 2025. Yes. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at this disc as I opened it up from the mail. And I'm like, is this a museum piece? I'm thinking now, Lord, what am I supposed to do with this? And how am I supposed to play this? So I started asking around the next day. I was asking coworkers and a couple of my family members, some friends, even I asked some of my students' parents, and 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 people later, only one person said that they had a DVD player, right? And get this. It was built into one of their old school TVs that they said was in their basement collecting dust. I'm not being funny here. And so I laughed about it. But after the laugh, I sat with that for a moment because it made me realize something very powerful. The world changes faster than we realize, right? And most of us are not prepared for how quickly it is moving. When I was growing up, we had cassette tapes, you'd have to rewind them with a pencil if they got stuck. And then later in my life came CDs, and I'm in my mid 30s right now. So then we had iPods, and that was a huge thing when I was in high school. And then that turned into downloading and being able to stream music. And in just one lifetime, or in my lifetime, I've seen music evolve 4 to 5 different times. The world does not wait for us to catch up. It just keeps spinning. And that is literally and figuratively when we're talking about the evolution of music, and also applying that to just any topic or theme in life. The world does not wait for us to catch up. It just keeps spinning. And that got me thinking, how many of us are still spiritually and emotionally or mentally holding on to DVD players in a streaming world? See, sometimes we resist new things, not because they're bad, but because they stretch us. We like comfort, and we like the comfort of knowing what we know. We say, oh, I'm just old school, or I don't need all of that new stuff. But family, let me tell you this. Here's the truth. When the energy of the world shifts, when how people connect work or how they connect with work or growth changes, if you will, you can't afford to stay stuck out of pride or out of laziness or out of fear, right? Let me tell you this, flexibility is a form of wisdom. Let me say that again. Flexibility is a form of wisdom. And there's a difference between standing firm in your values and standing still in your growth. Come on now. And if you're not careful, that pride in how things used to be can turn into the very reason you feel disconnected, uninspired, or point blank just left behind, right? Come on now. When I finally found a way to play the DVD player, because I ended up going to an old tech room and talking to one of the teachers that I know, and he found something deep in one of his old closets that the door hadn't even been opened in 3 or 4 years. He found me something. It hit me when he found that. It hit me when he found that finding the way to play the DVD wasn't the inconvenience that I thought it was, because it was in that moment that I remembered that sometimes the universe will place small obstacles in our path just to test how willing we are and able to adapt, right? Because adaptation doesn't just build skills, it builds humility, right? So maybe that's the message right there. Flexibility isn't just about survival, right? It's about spiritual maturity. It's about emotional maturity. It's about cognitive maturity. It's realizing that life is constantly evolving and revolving, right? And you must do the same. And I think some of us are afraid to do that, not because we don't see the value in growth and not because we don't want to grow, but because we've mistaken stability for safety, right? But hear me when I say this, family. Stability without flexibility is simply stagnation that is dressed up in a cute little dress with a pink little bow, and it looks nice. So here's the part of the podcast I like to call the Wise Counselor Unfiltered. It's real, it's raw, it's honest, it's my biggest takeaways, the things that I think you need to hear from the top of the message here. Number one, the world is not slowing down to match your comfort zone. Either you evolve or you start watching life from the sidelines. How many of us know somebody in our personal life or our professional lives, or that we just have crossed paths with casually even, and they refuse to do things differently? They're stuck in their ways. And unfortunately, when you circle back to them or you cross their paths again, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it is archaic, if you will, because they're not willing to transform. They're not willing to dive deep. They're not willing to be flexible and usher in new ways of doing things, right? So again, the world is not slowing down to match your comfort zone. If you're comfortable, then baby, I guarantee you're not doing anything to grow and change and to get better. The second thing I want you to think about is flexibility doesn't mean compromise. Now, I'm from a generation where people did what they did, and if they lived under that notion of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I understand that, but flexibility doesn't mean you have to compromise. It means that you're learning to shift your approach and that you don't have to lose your integrity in the process, right? So just because somebody presents you a way to do something more efficiently or something that helps more people, doesn't mean that you have to shift or shy away from the the root of who you are. Again, being flexible doesn't mean you have to compromise. Sometimes we have to do things differently to reach the masses. We have to do things differently to speak directly to the people who need the word, how they need it and why they need it, right? It's just like teaching somebody how to do addition. There's no one singular way to teach kids how to add, but the fact is the end result is you want people to know that 2 + 2 is 4. How you get to that is on you. I'm not saying that one way is better. Well, in teaching, yes, it is probably some more strategy and some evidence-based practices that probably lend themselves to why you would want to teach something the way you do. But let's just keep it generic. There's a lot of ways to get to a destination. One is not better, worse. They're just simply different. And so again, being flexible doesn't mean you have to compromise who you are at your core. And the last thing I really want you to think about is the moment you stop learning, you start aging. And we've heard that anything that's not living and breathing and growing is dead. And that means spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And it is true. The moment that people stop doing things that immediately push them into spaces where they have to keep their mind sharp or they have to keep their body sharp. When you stop doing that stuff, often you see a digression in health and in functionality fairly quickly. It's kind of like the saying, use it or lose it. So when you stop learning, you start aging. That is the aftermath or the onset or the repercussion of taking on a non-growth mindset, if you will. So don't let pride make you obsolete. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go jump on every trend or become something that you're not, but I'm saying this. When change comes, meet it with curiosity, not resistance and fear. So let's sit with this for a moment. I want to get a little bit more professional here. This is the part of the podcast I'd like to call the reflection room. And this is a part of the podcast where we bring in some evidence-based psychology and counseling and mindset coaching strategies, if you will, and really try to use some evidence, have a part of the podcast that brings in some evidence-based backed research content, if you will. And one of the things that I want to say is, I want you to ask yourself this, what one area in your life are you resisting change? Maybe it's a career path. Maybe it's how you show up in relationships. Maybe it's your health or your faith, or maybe it's your stinking thinking in your mindset, right? What are you clinging to that no longer is serving you? So the original question is, again, what's one area in your life where you've been resistant to change? I want you to think about that today. I want you to pull out your journal and really think about that. And I want you to be honest about how that is limiting your ability to grow and why that mindset may be casting a negative energy across multiple areas of your life. Here's the second question. Are you holding on to old patterns because it's comfortable or because it's actually necessary? Ooh. Again, we are creatures of habit. And just because we're doing something and we frequently do it and it's just the way that it's been done, it doesn't mean that it's something that you need to hold on to. So again, are you holding on to old patterns because it's comfortable or because it's actually necessary? And lastly, I want you to think about this. How can you make one small pivot this week that reflects who you are becoming and not who you used to be? Again, if we get down to the nitty-gritty about psychology and mental health and counseling, what is it about? It's about transformation. Whether it's us trying to be better for ourselves, us coming to grips with our history, us goal setting and having a future minded perspective. The end result, when you bottom line it, whether you're talking psychology principles, counseling principles, or coaching principles, is the goal is some form of transformation. So I think this week you need to think about one small pivot that you can reflect on, that you want to become, and not be reflecting on who you used to be. So what is one small pivot you can do this week that reflects who you are becoming and not who was or who you used to be? And because this podcast was all inspired by my PD coursework in sports psychology, I thought it would be appropriate to integrate something about sports psychology based on the movie Rudy. You know, sports psychology, and I'm doing this not because I have a boatload of athletic sports people listening. They may be out there, but I don't think that's my general population. But sports psychology can teach us a lot of things. And so I want you to think about this next segment, not necessarily through the lens of an athlete, but how can you apply this principle in sports psychology to your living and breathing and your walk, even if you're not an athlete. So anywho, sports psychology teaches us something very powerful. The greatest athletes aren't always the strongest or the fastest, right? But they are the most adaptable. That is one singular word that could summarize this entire podcast: adaptability or adaptable. When the game changes, they adjust. When conditions shift, they recalibrate. This is athletes. But think about that. Isn't that just the mark of a resilient person, irregardless of whether or not we're talking about athletics? The mark of a resilient person is somebody who can adjust when the game changes, who can shift and who can recalibrate without breaking down. Oh my goodness. See, that's what separates good people from great. It's their willingness to pivot without losing their focus. So here's another little nugget. Practice adaptability like a muscle, okay? Learn something new. Try something unfamiliar today, or if not today, definitely tomorrow. And ask questions. You've got to get comfortable stretching your brain on purpose. See, that's how you grow emotionally. And that's how you grow emotional agility, really. And in this world, emotional agility is as valuable as any other skill that you can list on a resume or a curriculum vitae. Come on now. So think about that. Practice adaptability and learn how to work it like you do any other muscle in your body. So family, as I wrap up here, I want you to remember something simple. Life will always ask you to evolve, but the question is, will you answer? Don't let fear of the unknown keep you trapped in what's familiar. Every time you say, I don't want to change, or I don't have to change, or the way I'm doing it is fine, this is a waste of time, you're closing the door on the opportunity to grow. You're closing a door that might be waiting for you to just blow up, and become stronger, better, wiser, or more impactful. So I want you to hear this. I know this is a lot to digest today, but I need you to breathe. I want you to open up your heart, and I want you to, at the end of the day, have a willingness to learn and to be flexible. And remember this, that great things do not happen overnight. You've got to learn how to take your time and to ease into yourself, and then absolutely give yourself permission to pause. When it's all said and done, you're the only one who is in control of your thoughts, your actions, and your reactions to what life throws your way. So just like I had to rally and find a DVD player to play this movie that I'm going to have to watch for this course, I know that whatever you face, any obstacle today, tomorrow, next week, next year, I believe in you and I know that you've got this. So if you didn't know, you've been listening to Wisdom with the Wise Counselor. I'm the Wise Counselor, and I hope that our time today not only helps you to grow and be better, but it gives you an opportunity to really identify how you're going to grow and be better. So as always, family, know that I love you. I believe in you. And again, I have no doubt that whatever you face, that you absolutely got this. You've got to dig deep into that toolbox and pull out those skills. And then if you don't got the skills, you have to have that adaptability. Come on. You've got to have that adaptability to go seek those skills, because I want the best for you. And that means sometimes you've got to work and you've got to do things differently. And that is okay, because you know what that means? That means your life is lifing. And that is the blessing. That even if we don't know how to face something, the fact that we have an opportunity to confront it or to grow or to face, that's the blessing right there. So family, I want you to be well. And I want to make sure that you like, share, and subscribe this podcast. Whatever you need to do, share this with somebody who needs some nuggets of motivation. I need you to help me grow this platform, and know that I cannot do that without faithful listeners who are willing to spread the good news that is on this podcast. So if you have not shared this podcast or talked about this podcast with somebody that you think would benefit, please do that this week. They can go to any streaming platform that they listen to their podcasts on and just simply search Wisdom with the Wise Counselor podcast. And I guarantee this podcast will pop up for people. Let's not hold on to these gems. There's so much richness to be able to share in the world. There's enough wealth, right? Let's make sure we get this podcast into the hands of people who need it. And I need you to help me do that so that we can spread messages of love, inspiration, joy, growth, resiliency, mental health, and all of that with the entire world, because it is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. But more importantly, it's a topic that we all need to get fueled on and then refueled on, so that we can be the best that we can be in any situation that we face and be able to do the work that we're supposed to do on this earth. So with that being said, I thank you for joining me. Share this podcast, get the message out. Stay tuned for season 2. It's going to be epic. And once again, I thank you for listening to Wisdom with the Wise Counselor. Until next time, again, know that I love you, and there's just absolutely nothing you can do about that. Be well.